Kia ora e te whānau nā kaimahi korerewai, ko Ollie tōku ingoa. Welcome back team, my name's Ollie, and today in the Wintec workshop we're going to be looking at joining copper pipe. So to do that we're going to kind of go back and look once again at cutting the copper pipe, and we're going to look at two different methods for forming a socket. So the first method is going to revolve using a hammer and a drift, and it's the old Armstrong hitting it method, and the second method is going to involve using a tool called a pipe expander. Now before we do that, today we're going to be dealing with hots and we're going to be dealing with flammables. So you really want to make sure you look at the work area and make sure other things like this, flammable solvent, or perhaps a gas cylinder from something you're not using are lying around, and make sure we isolate those, put them somewhere safe before we begin for the day. Okay, before we get started we want to look at the personal protective equipment or safety gear we need. We've got to have full length overalls, and we've got to make sure our arms are covered, and that's because we're dealing with hots, and like I said in a previous video, our forearms are a place that often gets burnt. We've got to have non-slip work boots on to make sure our feet are safe and we've got firm footing, and in particular today if we were to drop something hot we've got to make sure our feet are protected. We're going to have our goggles on like we do at all times in the Wintec workshop, and today we're going to be using leather gloves while we're brazing, and I like these ones that are calf skin. They're quite fine, and they strike a nice balance between protection from the heat but still giving you dexterity in your hands. Now another couple of things we're going to have present with us in the workshop today is a bucket of water. Now this is for a few reasons. We're going to be quenching hot pipe, so when you're leaving something and it's hot you've got to make sure you cool it before you hand it to someone else, and also for first aid if there were burns or anything else, the water would provide a way we could cool that quickly while help arrives. So with brazing today, there's going to be two heat sources we use to braze our copper pipes. The first one is going to be a map torch and a gas bottle, and we're going to quickly go over how to set this tool up and check if it's working safely. Now the first thing you want to do before you use this tool is inspect both the bottle, the threads, for anything that shouldn't be in there, and the tool itself. Now when these ones get a bit older or used, they're prone to developing a wobble in the blowpipe here, so make sure by wobbling it with your hands it's fine. You're then going to want to take the tool and wind it all the way to off, which is going to mean when we connect it, no gas can pass through the bottle. Okay, once you're happy with that, we take our bottle and we screw it on, the threads like that, and they should nicely fit down. And just before you hit the end, you might hear a slight hiss as that gas goes through. When that's screwed on tight, there should be no gas coming out of here. You shouldn't smell anything or you shouldn't notice any noise. Now once that's done, we can go back to our throttle and we can turn our throttle back up. And with this torch or this tool here, I think you want it all the way on. You don't want to have it on a half measure. Now to ignite our tool, all we do is take our finger and we depress the yellow button. Once again, before we do that, make sure your goggles are in place. You'll have your leather hand mittens on, your arms are covered, and you have your boots. And all we do to ignite this tool is we push the yellow button. It ignites like that. So when we're using the tool, we can leave our finger on the trigger and hold it there. If we wanted to turn the tool on and make it stay on, we could push the yellow button in place and push down that grey button there. With this tool though, however, at all times when it's lit, you have to be in control of it. You can't place the tool on a table like that and light it and leave it. And with this tool, when you're not using it, the safest way to leave it is lying down like that. If you were to leave the tool standing up like that and it was to fall off the table, it's quite likely you would slatter or break in between the neck there, and if that was to happen, that would instantly release all the gas from this tool into the workshop. So when you're not using it for the day, all you have to do is lie it down on the table like that, and that's safe for that tool there. Okay, the second way we're going to braze pipe today is with the oxygen acetylene gas welding plant we have here. So this tool uses two gases, oxygen in the black and acetylene in the maroon or a brown or a brownish kind of color here, and we combine those two gases at a certain pressure, and in this case it's going to be 50 kilopascals on each, so it's an even pressure, and we burn that at the tip of this blow torch here. So before we use this tool, we're going to make sure it's safe to use. So we're going to unwind this tubing, and we're going to inspect it all the way from one end to the other, And as we're doing that, we're looking for cracks or abrasions. Now these hoses have two parts. They have an internal pipe and an external pipe. And as the external pipe gets broken, we should notice a matted, kind of looks like fiberglass. And if we see that, we know that the external cover has broken and it's time to replace that torch or tool. We're also noticing that it has flashback arresters on both the oxygen and acetylene, and the valves seem to be in good condition. Okay, I'm going to quickly grab the tool we're going to use now to clean this tip before we go any further. So we've got the tip cleaning tool here, and we're going to quickly use this to clean up the edge of this nozzle and make sure that we're not getting any obstructions to the flow of the gas when we're trying to use it. Cool, now so we're going to use this to clean out the inside of that tip, which is going to ensure we get adequate gas flow out of that for brazing. Okay, the next step we're going to take is we're going to come down to the gauges here, and we're going to first turn on the acetylene, or allow the acetylene to come out of the bottle into the regulator. So we turn the valve all the way on and then half a turn back. We're then going to come to the blowtorch here, and we're going to turn the acetylene on all the way on, half a turn back, and come to our second stage regulator here and adjust the pressure up till we hit exactly 50 kilopascals on delivery. Now when I turn off the blowtorch here, you're going to notice the gauge here will jump up slightly, which is fine. We want 50 kilopascals running pressure, and you see it's jumped up to about 60 kilopascals there. We're now going to repeat that process for the oxygen. We're going to turn it all the way on and then half a turn back. We're going to run our oxygen on the blow pipe here, all the way on, half a turn back, and we're going to adjust our regulator till we achieve 50 kilopascals there as well. So what we've done is we've balanced the supply of oxygen and acetylene. We'll turn this torch off now, and it's ready to use for the day. Okay, now back at the workbench, we're going to show you guys how to join these two copper pipes together. Now to do that, this pipe will remain the male, and it will pass inside the socket end we're going to create in this pipe. Now to do that, we've cut the pipe and we want to give it a bit of a ream. So the same idea we've used before is to remove that internal edge, either with this reamer or the end of that reamer. And we only want to ream it enough until our drift can start sliding in. So that first part of the drift should be able to slide in, so I'll give it a little bit more of a ream and we'll be underway. Apologies for the noise. Okay, that drift is almost going to pile in there now, so I'm going to hold it in my hand like this, and I'm just going to give it a little tap to give it an assistance. Now when you're doing this, make sure you have your goggles on and anyone around you does, because there's a slight chance a ricochet could come off here, so please double check you've got those glasses on. And I'm going to just hit it softly like that, enough till it's engaged on that drift. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hit this pipe until we get this edge here all the way up to here. Now when we're doing that, this is the position where you have the most mechanical advantage. If you do it here, or you hold the hammer like that, you'll still be hitting this when next Christmas arrives. So you've got to hold it to your side and you get to hit it. And as we do that, you're going to notice that I'm going to turn this around every so often, because if I was to hit it in the same place over and over and over again, a bias will develop on one side of the pipe. So here we go, drifting time. To the side, holding the hammer at the end, one, and then turn it around. So probably 4 or 5 hits, and then turn it around. Now, as a plumbing apprentice, you will hit your hands at some point doing this, and the real trick is if you strike and you realize you're going to miss, you have to stop that blow before it hits your hand, otherwise it can be quite sore. We'll keep going. Okay, so we've got to the point now, I'll pull that out, where we can see we've created a socket or a female end where that male end can slide into the pipe like that. So that pipe now is ready to be brazed. So I'll bring it over here and we will place it on top of these fireproof bricks in a position where you can see it. Now when you're doing something like this, I think it's always a good idea to place another brick somewhere else like that and another brick here, because you don't want that to happen. You don't want things to fall away. So we'll do that again, there and there. And that now provides a nice area where I can get in and around and braze that pipe. Now to do that, we're going to go back and grab my gloves. We'll put those on. We're going to grab our map torch and we'll demonstrate how to braze that pipe together. So we've got our torch. We've also got a filler rod here called Silphos, and that is going to provide the join between those two surfaces there. So the process we're going to use is we're going to grab the torch and it's going to be in there, and we're not going to just heat this area here. We're going to heat from here all the way along to here generally. Then we're going to apply some specific heat into this area. Now when that pipe is lovely and warm, we can place the Silphos on there, and by conduction, by touching that pipe, the Silphos will melt, and then the process of capillary attraction will draw that silver solder into that join. So before I start welding, I like to have a little hook or a turn in my Silphos rod. So I'll push it down against this fireproof material and apply a flame. And that flame is going to allow me to bend that rod. And I like a shape like that because when I come into weld, it lets me it lets me gain access to the pipe around there like that. Okay, so we're going to come in now and we're going to focus on heating up that pipe. And you're just going to have to wait and give it time. If you think the pipe's getting hot enough but you're not sure, you can put your Silphos stick on there. You can see that it doesn't want to melt and it's scratching across quite nicely, so we still have to wait longer. You can see that deep red colour kind of coming through now, which means we're getting the pipe warm enough, or it's close to warm enough. And at this point we want to make sure the middle part where we're going to braze is balanced, so the pipe, both the male and female, are equally warm. Now if we think we're getting too hot, we can equally adjust the temperature just by coming out a little bit. So we're warm enough now. We're going to grab the Silphos in there and we'll let it melt and we'll apply around the pipe like that. And that's it. So what we've done there is we've created a water and gas proof joint in copper pipe. And as you can see, as it's slowly cooling, it's cooling back together to the middle. Now if I was to grab that now and move it, yeah, there's a chance I could damage that joint. So we'd like to leave it there for say 30 seconds or a minute before we do anything to it. And also please be aware, just that heat's gone away now, it is still really, really hot. So if you're going to move that or give that to someone else, you need to make sure that's cooled before you do so. So I'm going to grab my multi-grip pliers now, and I'll hold this side of the pipe here. We'll remove these bricks and I'll take it over to our bucket and we'll cool it down. A little bit of steam. Cool. And then we've got it. A brazed copper pipe. So I'm now going to show you how we can do that same process using the pipe expander and the oxygen acetylene plant. So now our second way of making that socket or join. So the same thing as last time, we want to make this pipe slide inside this pipe. Last time we used the drift. This time we're going to use this die here on our pipe expansion tool like this. Now if we were to place this straight inside like that and close it like that, there's a very, very good chance we would split or damage that pipe. So what we're going to do before we expand it is we're going to heat this up and crash cool it, which is called annealing. So we're going to soften that copper, which is then going to allow this tool to expand it really, really nicely. So we're going to come back over here and we're going to place the pipe there. I'm going to put my gloves on, and we're going to grab the oxygen acetylene torch. Now, we haven't talked about it up to this point, but when you're lighting an oxygen acetylene torch, the only safe way to do it is with a flint like this. You may see people using cigarette lighters or other things like that. This is the safest way to do it. So we're going to grab that. I've got my oxygen acetylene plant, which I've set to 50 kPa on both oxygen and acetylene. We're going to hold it in front of ourselves, and we're going to light it in this position here. Now, the reason I say that is often I have seen people doing other things where it's pointing towards themselves, and you obviously want to make sure that flame is in front of you. Now, one key thing to note at this point is it may make a little bang or a pop. If it does, you need to make sure you are holding that tool like that in front of you. You're not going to turn around to people next to you. So to light the tool, we're going to turn on the acetylene to half turn and light it like that. We're then going to tune the flame back. Oh, too far. Tune the flame back, and then we're going to bring up the oxygen supply slowly till we get a flame like that. And if I turn the flame side on like that, you should notice an obvious blue outer cone and a very, very dark blue inner cone, okay? Which is an indication that we've got a well-tuned flame. Put a little bit more oxygen in there maybe, just to there. And that's a happy flame there for us. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to bring it in close to the pipe, and I'm just going to use that heat and spread it around the pipe like this. And what you're going to notice is when you're using a tool like this, it's much hotter than the MAP gas torch we used before. You're going to slowly spread that heat around, and you can notice it's really, really red and warm a lot quicker than it was last time. So that's as far as we want to go. I'll take my flame away, I'll turn off my oxygen and then off my acetylene. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my multi-grip again and take this copper pipe over to the water, and we're going to quench it. So we'll bring it around here and we'll place it under the water like that. And what you're going to notice is when I bring it up to show you, the pipe here looks a lot different than the pipe here. So we say that this pipe has become annealed or softened, while this pipe remains half hard. So it's the annealed pipe we're concerned with now. We're going to come back around here, and I'll just remove my gloves for a minute. With the annealed end, we're now going to open up our pipe expander, and using this very, very front edge here, we're just going to put it inside and push it down. We're then going to remove the pipe once more, turn it around about halfway, push this in, and we want to go about halfway in. We'll stop, we'll take it off again, and we'll twist it around another half turn, and we'll push it all the way home. And what we've done now is we've created a really, really fantastic little socket where that can push in like that. So that's an example of where we've annealed it. We'll now bring this one back to our welding area, our brazing area. We'll place the pipe in our little jig. Now this is your chance now to move it around or get it in the right position, just like that. I'll put my gloves back on, and then we'll light up the oxygen acetylene plant and we'll braze that. Now what you're going to find compared to the MAP torch last time is this is going to heat up a lot quicker. And with an oxygen acetylene plant, if you do leave it in one place for too long, it is possible to put a hole in the pipe. So please make sure you keep aware of your heat. So I'll light up the plant again. Remember, it's acetylene first. And then we're going to tune the oxygen up. Cool. Maybe a little bit hot, I'll just drop it down. So that's going to be a good flame here for brazing. We're going to come in, I'll grab my sulfos stick again and create my little bend I like. Cool. And we're going to come back, heating the pipe up over the whole pipe first. Sorry, not the whole pipe, just the whole work area. We'll get that lovely and warm, and then we'll focus more just on the socket itself. So once again, this is a time you don't have to rush. If you are worried it's getting too hot, you can always pull the flame back a little bit, but just up and down the pipe like that, to allowing that heat to flow into both the male and the female ends. we'll focus just on here. You can see that red starting to come through. We've got a balance almost. There's the balance between the two pipes, so the colours are pretty equivalent. We know that we're in the right ballpark now to get that sulphos in. So we're going to grab the sulphos in there. And it should just lick around just like that beautifully. And that's it. Just double check the other side, looks pretty good. Oh, maybe a little dot more on that other side. And let's check underneath. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So oxygen off, acetylene off. Replace the blowpipe where it goes, and then we can now quench the pipe. So we'll bring it over to our water. Now remember, when you're doing this, if you put your face over the top, there's a possibility that steam could come out. So quench one side, and we'll flip it over and we'll quench the other side. And we now have an example of copper pipe braze with an oxygen acetylene plant. Cool, so thanks for joining us again in the Wintec Plumbing Workshop. I hope you enjoyed our introduction to copper brazing. Remember, this is a technique or tool use which can be dangerous due to heat and other things involved. When you are getting the oxygen acetylene plant out for the start of the day, please make sure you get your tutor to leak check it, and if in doubt with setting up, ask them to help you. Like always, we're here to help and help you on your journey through your training. Thanks for joining us here, and ka kite anō.